Hey, what up, though? It's your boy, middle-aged muscle man musician, also known as Donald Pump. You already know what to do. Tap that bell if you haven't already. Hit like in the video immediately because you're going to definitely like this one. And leave a comment or two down below. Let's argue about our favorite bodybuilders. Actually, maybe you guys can kind of freshen my memory of some guys I had forgotten and stuff like that, because there's a lot of years that I was away from following the sport. But yeah, that's what we're talking about today. I had someone ask me to do a video on, I always say to hit the Cash App with a couple bucks, suggest a video topic, something that you want me to talk about. And I got a surprise on this one. I figured if somebody's going to give me a few dollars, it'll be for supplementation advice, programming, exercise selection, test boosters, something. But instead it was a pretty cool, refreshing topic to talk about who my favorite bodybuilders were and are. I'm 42, as you guys know. And when I was a kid, probably, I think I was like 11 or something like that, my grandfather saw that I had some interest in bodybuilding. And even though he said not to really go into weights and especially heavy weights at such a young age, he probably thought it was a good, positive thing to follow. He was a very serious bodybuilder. I mean, the guy was still jacked and shredded when he was, 70 years old. So he got me the Weider Approach book. It was made in 1981. It was just on, I guess you'd call it, the outside of the golden era. And it was kind of recapping some of the greatest bodybuilders in the game, the way that they looked at things, all these different training ideas as far as splits go and different types of intensity and weight ranges and stuff like that. It was a really cool resource. It had a bit of everything. And I mean, going into it, of course, I knew of Arnold. Pretty quickly, I understood, why he was special, why he was an inspiration on people. I will admit to this day, I use a lot of his visualization stuff. He talked about stuff like with the bicep, like he'd picture as like a mountain range crushing together, something like that. It really, without him even saying that's what he was doing, he was kind of aiding you in your mind-muscle connection. And we all know what he says about the pump. If you don't, just look it up. I won't go into it. He was a guy who I think was really preaching to you about your mind-muscle connection and maybe inadvertently leading to you having a better connection. But with Arnold, though, I immediately wanted someone different. What I mean by that is that he was the most famous and well-known bodybuilder out there, the most accomplished. And it's like not so much a dark horse pick, but I wanted to be a little different. And I was kind of finding my way into what it was I admired about certain bodybuilders. What would I try to do myself, if I continued on with this. And I liked Franco Columbo right away, because he kind of got you away from the stereotype of like dumb musclehead guy or whatever it was they used to say back in the day. He's a doctor. I found that fascinating. Now, I didn't know he was a chiropractor. If I would have known that, I was young. It didn't matter. But still, very intelligent guy. And he was fascinating because he'd been, a power lifter, a great boxer. He was just an all-around athlete. It almost seemed like he was so good at everything else. He's like, okay, well, here's the one thing that's a constant challenge. This is tough. I don't know if that was his thought on it or not. But also, and a lot of this is coming from, a lot of magazines and stuff like that. I started with the Weider Approach book and then started picking up these magazines and learning about these guys and their process and their backgrounds and stuff like that. And of course, there's Frank Zane and his wife, actually, who trained with him and I believe was as accomplished, if not more, in the female ranks as he was in the male ranks. I liked him because he was sort of a rebel. He was training for a physique that was completely different from everyone else. More focus on symmetry, conditioning. He was a smaller guy, and he was cognizant enough to say, hey, I'm never going to be a mass monster. I'm going to show these guys how you build the perfect aesthetic physique. And, posing everything, he had it down to the science. It seemed as though the physique he was going for, even though in some ways for many it would require more effort, it seemed to be more reachable. As a bodybuilder, I'm showing what I know how to do. I'm showing I know how to sculpt my muscles, build them to their best capability, and get the conditioning right and the supplementation. Um, and here's my end result, what I can build. I really like that approach. He had a whole lot of passion and intelligence. When it comes to the passion, as far as having your own way of doing things, you know, you approach it scientifically, you put your everything into it, all your effort and thought, and then you spread it around, you teach others. Nobody did that quite like Mike Mentzer. I really liked Mentzer too, because come to find out, he was actually, you know, a legit philosopher, not just a guy who wrote about bodybuilding and had just his passions in bodybuilding. He's a very intelligent guy. He had sound reasoning behind what he was teaching. He had the body to show for, hey, this is all I did. He bucked the system, basically. And it wasn't just because of the controversial outcome of the 1980 Olympia. Prior to that, even, he was almost going to an ideological war with the Weider approach, which was interesting that I actually learned about him a bit in that book, but I learned much more later. His emphasis on the intensity part of training and doing less volume, having a more quality training sessions, shorter amount of time, much more rest. You know, learning that kind of stuff from him made me look more into how responsible is rest for your growth. And pretty damned. And now everyone knows that. But he was maybe the first kind of mainstream guy talking about that on the level that he did. His approach like greatly influenced Dorian Yates, another guy I liked a lot down the road. You know, as a kid, as a teenager, it's like I got away from following bodybuilding after a few years, and then I kind of jumped right back into following it and jumped right into learning the new guys that were in the game. And Yates, his mass was unbelievable. He and Jay Cutler both felt like outliers at the time. You know, I think I've mentioned on here before that I wasn't the biggest fan of Ronnie Coleman. I mean, his physique is incredible. He's, you know, definitely one of a kind, as accomplished as anyone can get. But with him, I kind of saw a trend in bodybuilding going toward the massy stuff, like to almost to where it's at now. And when I was watching, you know, Yates and Cutler, I kind of thought that they were the outliers. You know, everybody else is pretty damn big and has great conditioning, but these guys are freaking massive. And I thought they were, you know, come to find out it was just indicative of a lot of the bodybuilding stuff I had missed, where it was just this gradual turn toward just size, you know. But yeah, not to down Ronnie Coleman or anything. I'm just pointing out that Yates had a certain type of musculature that I'd never seen before. Just massive. The back definition, I was always kind of fascinated with that kind of a back. Like I just did not see how you could build it. You know, now fast forward all these years, the back is actually my strong point. But the mass he was able to build on it was just incredible. Cutler too. I was always big on building my pecs up to a certain level too. And a lot of guys, there's more and more magazines at that time where guys are supposedly describing exactly what they did or what their philosophy on building certain muscles in different ways was. And, you know, there's a lot of emphasis on inclines and stuff like that with Cutler. That kind of helps you understand more like, how the heck can I build this part of my chest? And Cutler was a guy who probably could have leaned a bit on his upper body development and even his back too, I believe. But he went all out to have the most massive, powerful legs in the game. Everybody knows about that little stomp he did on stage, and it just looked incredible. And someone like me, I was just like, man, how do you build your legs like that? It was pretty fascinating to me. But yeah, shoot, rewind though. I believe that prior to Cutler and Dorian Yates, there was Flex Wheeler. Flex Wheeler was by far my favorite maybe he's my favorite or one of my top guys ever still to this day. I really liked Flex Wheeler because, yeah, he had size. He had plenty of size, but it was far more aesthetic. I mean, everything was just perfect proportions, the shape of the muscle. It was really cool that he was flexible the way that he was, because my problem, and this is probably in my late teens, early 20s, I could get really big. I could get big and powerful, get like an intimidating physique, but I got clunky. I'd go to play basketball and I couldn't dribble between my legs anymore, just the size of my thighs and the way that my muscles moved together at that point. Flex made you want to go find more functional exercises, made you want to do like maybe a little more cardio, just a little more sporting activity in general. So you had the functioning of great muscles, not just the presentation of them, and not just raw power. For all I know, maybe his cardio and stuff wasn't even on the level of some of the other guys, but just the way that he built his physique. And now I realize a lot of stuff was genetic with him. I mean, the guy's muscles had perfect shape. I mean, it takes a lot of work to get the proportion and to build him up the way that he did. But still, I realize now that some of what I liked was not something you could train your body to do. It is either predisposed to have those muscle inserts and bellies and shape, or it's not, But either way, he's also become one of the most humble and seemingly nicest guys in all of bodybuilding. I still look at Flex, and he's very helpful in advice to young guys as far as keeping your motivation and how to look at things, and how to be more awake to what you're doing and what's going on around you, rather than just like the tunnel vision on the goal. It's just hilarious to me now, though, because when I would look at someone like Flex Wheeler, I really admired what he had built, because I thought I could be like Cutler or Dorian Yates. That's the funniest part of all of this is, since I got kind of bulky when I worked out, since, it's very easy for me to become powerful for my size anyway. I thought that, oh, I'm one of those guys. If I dedicate my whole life like they have, I'll be built like that, which is fucking laughable. So I'd see Flex Wheeler and I'd say, okay, I got to find what the other work is that he does that they don't do, so that I can get, a little bit better, at least in my opinion, a little bit better look and more functionality out of my muscles, which, obviously I know now that being Jay Cutler or Dorian Yates is like impossible for just about everyone. But these are some of the guys that really influenced me. Wait, back to Arnold. He's kind of a polarizing figure, as much as I hate that overused term, because you really admire his positive attitude, almost cocky, confident attitude toward being a champion, and his dedication and his showmanship, all of these things. You love the way that he explained the visualization and all that kind of stuff. You feel like he's a big help to anyone coming up in the game. But then at the same time, he's kind of a prick. There's reasons they hate Arnold. There's the questionable outcome and stuff like that at the Olympia. There's the way that he kind of even picked on Franco Columbo, even though they're friends and partners. I mean, you read some stuff and you're like, wow, Arnold's like a practical joker, but I don't think he really understood when a joke crossed over from being funny to being offensive. So, yeah, he was a divisive guy, I think. But he was the American dream. He's done great at everything he put his mind to. I mean, this guy says, I want to be an actor, or I want to be a government official, and just boom, there it is. So those are some of the guys that I followed the most. I'm seeing some good personalities and positive stuff coming from some of the current guys, I'm not big into the just get bigger thing that's going on in bodybuilding today. I like the men's physique stuff. I like that we seem to be going back to that golden era. I think it's more pleasing to the eye. I think it's more what made guys want to bodybuild. And I think that just having that division will bring out more talent than we've seen in a long time. I think that it attracts more people to the sport. Not a whole lot of guys, I don't think, would say, okay, I love working out. I want to bodybuild because I want to just have the biggest muscles in the world. I don't think most of us think that way. I think most of us think that we want to build a physique that's proportionately flattering to these strong points of our body. We want big muscles, but we want it to be attractive to women. So let me know who you guys liked. You know, some of these guys like Cutler, I watch his current videos when he puts them out. Super humble guy, like really helpful. It seems like he goes out of his way to assist others and follow in the path of a bodybuilder. Extremely honest in some instances where he doesn't have to be. He seems like a really great guy and somebody who's better to look up to maybe than some other guys in the sport. But that's not to say he's the only one. He's just the only one I've probably spent a lot of time watching. I've come to like Brandon Curry, I believe is his name, even though he's caught some crap from more of the old school guys for, you know, the conditioning and stuff, which is kind of silly because it's not him, it's the game, it's the industry. It reminds me of like baseball where, you know, the fundamentalist guys from back in the day were probably kind of throwing like little disses at the power hitters at the late 90s, early 2000s, not because of the steroid thing, even though everybody probably knew about it, but just for the simple fact that, hey, in my day, we could bunt and we'd stretch a single to a double or, you know, and still hit for power. And our batting averages were higher, but you guys are just power, you know? So, I mean, it is silly to kind of denigrate a guy because of how the game is. It is what it is these days. That's the way the game is played. But like I said, I think that the popularity of the men's physique thing is changing it in a positive way. And at one point, I haven't talked about it much on here, but I would actually I'd like to compete one day for men's physique in a certain age class. And yeah, there's another guy that seems pretty cool that's out there nowadays is Bumstead. He doesn't come right to mind because he's basically in the other division. He's another guy. He's very, very transparent, and he makes training videos. He's even gracious when, say, he doesn't have the greatest form in one of his videos and a guy calls him out for it and stuff like that. He's a guy who really loves what he's doing and has some great advice as well.